Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make a sewing bag tote using a packet of charm squares. And what I like about these bags is they're lovely roomy bags, and if you were going on a sewing retreat, this bag's the perfect size because, as you can see, you can fit an ironing mat and a cutting mat inside. So I'll show you, pop that inside and you'll see that you've still got lots of room for all your other sewing bits and bobs. Now, to make these bags, what you're going to need is a charm pack. You're going to need a metre of fabric for your lining, and on this one I've used a grunge, and then you're going to need 3/4 of a metre for your bag handles and your binding, and for your 2 extra squares, because as you know, a pack of charm squares contains 42 5-inch squares, and for this bag we actually need 44 5-inch squares. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. So you lay out your charm squares. Let me just put those down there a minute. You lay out your charm squares and you sew them together like this. So you do 6 in a row, 6 in a row, 6 in a row. So you do that 3 times and you join that together. And then you do that again. So that's at this end. So 6, 6, 6, and you join those 3 together. Now, if you've got directional fabric, just be mindful of your placing of the directional fabric so it's the right way round when your bag stands upright. Now, this bit in the middle here, so it's a bit of a funny shape as you can see, but this is our base. So the 2 extra squares that I've had to cut out, I put in the base because it doesn't matter if they don't go with the rest of it. So we then do 2 rows with 8 in, and you sew them together till you've got something that looks like this shape. Then I've put wadding behind it, and then I've quilted it, and I've just done a really simple straight stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the seams either side, and these are called tramline quilting. So that's the body of the bag made, and I'm going to show you how to join that in a moment. But first of all, I'm going to tell you what you're going to need for the lining. So for the lining of the bag, you're going to need a base. Let's get that one out first. So you're going to need a base which measures 9.5 by 18.5. You're going to need a front piece and a back piece, both measuring 14.5 by 18.5. And then you're going to need 2 side pieces measuring 9.5 by 14.5. And you're going to join those together so they make a pocket which goes inside the bag, and I'll show you that in a moment. In addition to that, you need to make your handles. So your handles end up looking like this. So with the handles, you need a piece of fabric which measures 10 inches across the width of the bolt. So this is 10 inches by 42 inches. And what you do is you fold it in half so you've got this crease line, and then you fold your 2 end pieces into the centre like this. I've already pressed this one just to save a bit of time. So what I've also done, and this is entirely up to you, is I've put iron-on Vilene on this just to give the handles some stiffness, because you want them when you've got them on your shoulder. If you've got a really heavy bag, you want these to have a bit of body. So you fold it in half and in half to the centre like that, and then you fold that in half, so your 10-inch strip now becomes a 2.5-inch strip. And what I did with the handles, as you can see here, is I just machined 1/4 of an inch down from each side, and I just tucked the end pieces in at the bottom there like that, and that's your 2 handles made. You're also going to need your binding. So I've already cut this at 2.5 inches. And this has been folded wrong sides together, and that's ready to bind our bag. So all our pieces are ready. So now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how to sew the sides and how to make a box shape in the bottom of the bag. So with a walking foot on, we're just going to sew these two side pieces together where you've got your 6x3 at either end of you've got your little piece in the middle, and I'm just going to fold that in half and I'm just going to sew down each side of this using approximately 1/4 inch. It doesn't really matter. Now we'll do the other side. And now what we're going to do, I'll show you on this camera first of all, is we're going to open that box base like this. I'm just going to open that seam there. I'll show you, see if I can show you on this camera as well. So that's where we've sewn down, and now we're going to sew across here like this. So as I say, just open that seam to take away some of the bulk, and again 1/4 inch. And you can see that we've got that nice boxy shape now. I'm just going to do the same on the other side. Just open that seam like that and line it up with that bottom seam there. Now I'm going to turn it the right way. I'll turn it through. I'm just going to give the corners a little poke out like this. There we are. And you can see that we've got our boxy shape. So now we're going to sew our lining pieces together, and what I tend to do is I put the base down, I sew the front to the base and the back to the base, right sides together, and then I sew the two end pieces so that I have a piece finished that looks like this. So you can see this is our lining. Now, if you wanted to put pockets in it, the time to do that is before you actually join all your lining pieces together. So for example, this colour would make a lovely pocket on the inside of this bag if you wanted to do that. So I'm just going to pop this inside. So I have sewn my front and back and 2 sides to the base, and I've got another boxy shape. So I'm going to pop this inside the bag. And if you wanted to, you could put template plastic in the bottom of your bag if you just wanted to give it a bit more shape, just to keep the base nice and flat. So it's a little bit fiddly. And then what you do, once you've got your lining in, you will need some pins, and you're going to pin your lining in place. Now your lining will be held by the binding. So I just line up the seams and pop a pin in, and do that all the way around. So you can see a bit better now how it's beginning to take shape as I'm pinning the lining into the bag. So once you've done that, I've just pinned it very roughly. I'd probably take a bit more time ordinarily, but for the purposes of today, I've pinned it quite roughly. So you can now see, perhaps you can see on this camera above me, how you've got the lining into the bag. And the other thing I would do is I would just put a stitch in my corners. So the corner of my lining and the corner of my bag, I would just do a little hand stitch so that it sat nice and flat and snug. Then you're going to take your binding, and the same as you would bind a quilt, you attach your binding right sides together. So your binding's been pressed in half, wrong sides together. So the right side of your binding to the right side of your bag, and then pin that on all the way around. And again, using your walking foot, you would machine that on, and then you would turn your binding over so it would hide all your raw edges. So we'll just go back to the bag that's already been made. I'll show you on this one. So you can see that the binding was machined on and then turned to the inside, and you can just see how that's been slip stitched down. And then the handles have been attached, just sewing all the way round, again with your walking foot to secure your handles. And that's how you make a sewing bag tote using a charm square pack. So as always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a button just to my left. If you've got any questions, we're happy to answer those in the comments below. And for all your patchwork and quilting needs, head on over to the sewing studio. We have an amazing array of patchwork and quilting products, and all of the relevant links are in the description below. Look forward to seeing you next time.